What's up everyone, Darcblade here with my video review of Bloodborne. Developed by From Software and published by Sony Computer Entertainment, Bloodborne was released late March 2015 exclusively for the PlayStation 4. Bloodborne could be considered the spiritual successor in the Souls game series, although there are some significant changes. That being said though, if you've played Demon Souls or any of the Dark Souls games, you will have a good idea of what to expect from Bloodborne. The story of Bloodborne is not linearly told. Like the previous Souls games, it's told through small interactions with people you find, item descriptions, and notes found around the world, with a few cutscenes here and there. The setting for Bloodborne is set in the huge gothic city of Yharnam and its surrounding areas. You play as a hunter foreign to the land. Yharnam was once the leading city in blood healing, and is the main reason to why you as a hunter has come to this place. However, Yharnam has fallen from its former glory. Thanks to corrupted blood, the city is now cursed, and most of its inhabitants plagued with this corruption, which mostly takes the form of lycanthropy. Although there are other forms of monstrosities and creatures around in this gothic and decaying city. At the start of the game you get to create your character, your hunter. Here you can customize your look of your hunter as well as its origin, which dictates its beginning stats. After arriving in the city, you are given a blood transfusion by a strange old man. He is telling you to seek pale blood, and as your consciousness fades, you are told that this may all be a bad dream. Upon hearing these words, you next envisage a blood-soaked lichen appearing from a pool of blood, reaching out for you. After which, you are dragged into darkness by strange white beings called messengers. Once you awaken, you are left with a note telling you to seek pale blood. But no further clues are left for you, so you head out into the streets of Yharnam. The corrupted blood makes the citizens distrustful of almost everyone, especially outsiders. Thus, when you arrive, you are met with hostility. Despite the majority of the city being infected, the people of Yharnam often take part in these nightly hunts to hunt down people who have turned or who may turn. These same citizens also show no hesitation when approached by you, who they see as a foul beast. Now, if a player is met with an untimely demise, they awaken in a haze in the hunter's dream, Bloodborne's hub world. Here in this workshop, used by hunters, you are met by Gehrman and the Doll. Both help you during your time with Bloodborne, as you try to survive this nightmare. Before leaving the hunter's dream, you find a note saying, to escape this dreadful hunter's dream, halt the source of the spreading scourge of beasts, lest the night carry on forever. Once ready, you head back out into the streets again to try to unravel this blood-soaked and dark mystery. Now this is just a very brief summary of the story and lore of Bloodborne. There are so many subplots, themes and underlying tones that make Bloodborne's story deep despite being very dark and depressing. Bloodborne also gives way to 3 possible endings, giving further meaning to the story behind Bloodborne. Like with other games in the Souls series, parts of this tale can be left up to the player's interpretation, which for me is always a bonus. I could spend a fair few hours talking about the story, but that would be too long a video to make. The gameplay of Bloodborne again will feel familiar to veteran Souls players, although there has been a great emphasis on speed and aggression rather than being defensive and conservative. For those who have not played a Souls game before, Bloodborne could be described as a third-person action role-playing game. On top of this, it is a very dark game that can be considered very hard. It's very punishing. If you make an error, you'll more than likely die. It puts a great emphasis on skill. In Bloodborne, you move smoothly enough, with the standard run and dodge mechanics to avoid foes. On the offensive end of the scale, you have access to a variety of weapons. Firstly is your trick weapon. These gruesome weapons can be transformed from one weapon to another. This works great for different situations. Say you're running around with a short-ranged weapon. Well, the trick weapon will probably have a secondary form that gives it extra reach. With the press of a button, the weapon will simply change form and can even be used mid-combo to continue your assault. Your other weapon is normally a 19th century firearm. This is used for long-range attacks, but it is more effective used as a countering tool. With a well-timed blast from your blunderbuss, you can stagger an opponent, leaving them open for a visceral attack that does tons of damage. You can also carry multiple weapons and switch to them via the D-pad. The combat involves a series of light and heavy attacks. Most of these function well enough and should be practiced to know what works well against different types of enemies. The enemies in Bloodborne are vicious and varied, from the torch-wielding townsfolk on the brink of turning to the great beasts referred to as the Great Ones. There is a wide variety of enemies to take delight in dispatching or despair in dying to. The boss fights in Bloodborne are a highlight, from the towering monstrosities to human-sized foes. Each is well designed. They all have attack patterns that need to be mastered in order to bring them down. These bosses are more than likely going to be a source of frustration for some players, but it is a great test of skill. As you progress through the game, slaying beasts and foes will yield you blood echoes, Bloodborne's main currency. The other currency is insight, which is rarer as it's gained through bosses and primarily used for multiplayer purposes. With blood echoes you can enhance, level up and purchase new gear for your character. Again, like previous Souls games, if you die, you lose your echoes and will have to try to retrieve them. However, unlike previous Souls games, your echoes can be absorbed by enemies that killed you, and thus you need to slay them instead of walking over to where you last died. This, however, is not always the case, especially if you died from falling and there's no foes around. Also, unlike previous Souls games, there's no harsh punishment for dying apart from losing your blood echoes, so there's no reduction in your life bar or such. A worthy mention is that once you finish the game, you have access to New Game Plus that allows you to go through the game again with all your stats, all your levels and such, but all the enemies and bosses are more difficult and sometimes employ new tactics. This New Game Plus can be done again and again, each time increasing the difficulty of this already hard game. During your time with Bloodborne, you will also be able to access chalice dungeons. These chalices, once used, can form small dungeons for players to tackle. They can even be randomly generated for more difficulty with the correct chalice. Inside, players will find different versions of weapons, runes and loot. They will also be able to tackle different random bosses at the end of each dungeon floor. Some of these bosses are not available in the story even. I have to say, some of the hardest challenges that Bloodborne had to offer were found within these chalice dungeons, especially when using the high level chalices. This is well worth trying, especially if you want your skills tested. Yharnam is a big place, and although it's not open world, it feels big. This, combined with a few surrounding areas and nightmare zones, makes Bloodborne a sizable game. Throughout your exploration of the world of Bloodborne, you will want to take your time, explore every nook and cranny for hidden items and clues to unravel the story. Trust me, taking your time to explore is well worth it. Bloodborne does have multiplayer, both co-op and competitive or PvP. During your journey, you can summon players who are within your level range to help out with difficult bosses or areas. This works fairly well and can certainly help when you get stuck or when you want to share blood echoes and insight, but there are a few downsides. Sometimes there can be frame rate issues in co-op, especially when there are more than 2 players. There is also an issue with the long wait times for co-op players to join one another. There are some theories on how to improve the time it takes to join friends, but I hope that in time From Software improve the wait time with a patch or something. The other side of the multiplayer coin is PvP. You have the option to invade other players' games if you're playing online and there's a sinister bell nearby to summon you into their world. Once you are in their game, you have to hunt the other player down, and if successful, you are rewarded with his blood echoes and some insight. The multiplayer works for the most part, although the summoning aspect could be more streamlined. The art design of Bloodborne was one of the first things that attracted me to the game. It is dark, foreboding, depressing, and has a sense of horror about it. All of these aspects drew me into the game. The graphical design of the game is an improvement over the previous Souls games. The character models look amazing, although when it comes to creating your own hunter, it does take a fair bit of time and effort to create a character that looks good, but it can be done. Environments, for the most part, look great, with the clever use of fog and lighting to enhance the moods of Bloodborne. The close-up environments really do look like a big step up from the Souls series. On the downside though, there are a few issues with some low-res textures and skyboxing looking less than up to par. However, there are not many of them, and you have to go out your way to notice them. The architecture of Bloodborne, especially in Yharnam, was a highlight for me. The Gothic streets all connect, and once you know your way around, is a joy to traverse. The music is atmospheric and fits the art style of Bloodborne, with blaring music for intense boss fights to somber tones when exploring. A particular note is the music when you fight the wet nurse. This lullaby is very haunting and is present throughout Bloodborne. The voice acting could be considered a bit hit and miss. Some characters are voiced superbly, while others seem to have little effort put into them. This may be how the character is written, but I was unable to tell. The effects and combat animation are another highlight that is worth mentioning. As you slash and combo your way through foes, transforming your weapon and blasting away with your firearm, you can tell that a lot of care and attention went into the animations. Overall, Bloodborne has been a gem of a game that has shone despite its dark tones. The story, although not being told clearly, is deep and fulfilling. If you take the time to learn the lore, speak to every NPC, read every note and inspect every item, you will be drawn into Bloodborne's world. Depressing it may be, but it is told so well. Also, the fact that the story can be left open to players' interpretation shows that it is a game that can result in multiple meanings, themes and contexts. The gameplay is a highlight with smooth flowing combat and exploration. The RPG elements like leveling up help you grow attached to your hunter and thus deepen your place in Bloodborne's world. While the game is hard for most players, with time and patience it can be tackled. The bosses are never really that unfair if you learn how to tackle each of their possible attacks. This, however, will take time and more than likely result in many deaths. Bloodborne is faster than the previous Souls games. This for me was a plus and made the combat more exhilarating. The presentation and art design was awe-inspiring, and despite a few blemishes, it cannot be said that this game looks bad. Out of all the Souls games I've played, this is by far my favourite. It's a shame in a way that more people won't get a chance to play it as it's a PS4 exclusive, but if you ever needed a reason to get a PS4, Bloodborne could be one of them reasons. If you're looking for a game that is well designed, has a fascinating story and lore, comes with smooth flowing gameplay and sets out to test a player's skill, then Bloodborne is worth a go. Just be aware that it can be tough and you will die a lot. Anyway, I've been Darcblade bringing you my video review of Bloodborne. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.